Hello friends, my name is Casey and welcome to another video. Today I'm going to do my January to March reading wrap-up. I love doing wrap-ups. I think they're a lot of fun and I love just like containing all my reading and like wrapping it up.
I can reach for a well-worn book to give me an escape.
I haven't been reading a ton this year so far, at least for me, so that's why I'm doing a quarterly instead of a monthly. But you know, if I end up reading a lot one month, maybe I'll end up doing a monthly one, or we'll stick to quarterlies. We'll see how it goes. Speaking of not reading a lot, I only read 3 things in January. The first thing I read was Take the Mic, Fictional Stories of Everyday Resistance, and this is edited by Bethany C. Morrow, but it's by a bunch of authors, and this was so good. I ended up rating this 5 stars and I would highly recommend it. I will say definitely look up trigger warnings. I can't think of them all off the top of my head, but there's definitely a ton of trigger warnings in here. It is very intense. It has some heartwarming stories but also some heartbreaking ones, but it was really good. It was a really good read and I loved all of the authors in here. The ones that I didn't know previously, I'm definitely going to be looking up more of their stuff, but I did know quite a few of them already, so I was kind of expecting to love this, which is why I picked it up in the first place. So that is Take the Mic, edited by Brittany C. Morrow, with a bunch of authors, and I gave this 5 stars. Next is Ikanga by Nnedi Okorafor, which I believe I am pronouncing correctly. I looked it up, but let me know if I'm not. Pronunciations in any language are not my strong suit. This is about a boy whose father, who is the police chief, is murdered, and he wants to figure out like what happened to his father and also what's happening like in the town, in the village that he lives in. And one night he has a mysterious meeting and is gifted an ikanga, which I did not know what they were before I read this, and it was so fascinating to read about. And then also this is obviously Nnedi Okorafor, so there is a fantastical sci-fi twist on it, and I really loved this. There was a part of it where I was hesitant because I wasn't sure where it was going, and I will say that this got really dark for a middle grade. This is a middle grade book and I feel like it got much darker than I expected it to, but Nnedi Okorafor is just so good at everything like writing and structure and like the plot and characters and the way it all like comes together. This was incredible to read. I picked it up kind of accidentally and I read like the first chunk of it in like one go because it was just like I couldn't put it down. It was so good. And it's pretty short. I ended up giving this 5 out of 5 stars as well, even though there was that part that I was unsure about, just because it was so compelling and so well done. I've only read like a handful of Nnedi Okorafor's things first. I really need to read more and I am so excited to read more, but also I'm like, she's one of those writers that I'm like scared to read more of because I don't want to like run out of her stuff to read. Like I don't want to run out of stuff by her to be excited about, if that makes sense. I really loved her Binti trilogy as well. I thought that was incredible and so different. Definitely check out this and Nnedi Okorafor in general. She's amazing. I reread The Emperor's Soul by Brandon Sanderson for our Cosmere Crab Along. If you don't know what I'm talking about, Brie and I are hosting a year-long Cosmere read-along called the Cosmere Crab Along because crabs. We have a Discord for it and we have a whole plan. If you're curious, I will leave the announcement video in the Discord link down below. You should join us, hang out, read some Cosmere with us. For January, it was Elantris and Emperor's Soul, but since I had just read Elantris in like September, I think, I decided not to reread it and just reread Emperor's Soul because it had been like 5 years since I had read this book, and I have to say, rereading it was so different than the first time I read it. This is such an incredible complex book though. It's so short, it's just a novella, but it's just so good and so interesting, especially if you read it after reading more of the Cosmere. And I think you can read it early, but I will say for people that don't like slower plotty stuff, like plotty as in like slow plotty, not like plot. I don't know if that made sense. Anyway, it has a lot of Cosmere stuff in it that is super interesting to read later on. But even saying that, I read this like one of the first things I read of Sanderson and I fucking loved it. So take that as you will, I guess. Anyway, I gave this 5 stars on a reread. Give it 5 stars on the original read too. And then we have February, which I definitely read way more stuff in than I did in January. So first off, I read Children of the New World by Alexander Weinstein. This is a short story collection. It's pretty short itself and it came out in 2015, I think. Let me double check that. 2016. Okay, it came out in 2016 and I remember when it came out there was this huge hype about it. I don't know if it was just like the people I was following, but I think some of the Book Riot staff was like super into this book, and I picked it up remembering that, and I can see where maybe in 2016 it did have that impact, but I feel like now it just doesn't have the same impact as it does. This is like a sci-fi short story. They're not interconnected, but the main characters of every story feel so similar. They're just the same like generic dude that I feel like they could be interconnected. I don't know if it's supposed to feel like that or not, but it just did. It had some interesting stories in it, but I feel like nothing was super groundbreaking or overly interesting. I only ended up giving it 2 out of 5 stars. I liked it. I liked enough to finish it, but overall it was just kind of meh for me. If you really like dystopian stuff, you maybe try this out, but there's probably better things out there, to be honest. Next, I read a poetry collection called We Call Them Beautiful by Casey Tromer. I believe I picked this up at a bookstore because it is a signed copy. If I can find the bookstore, I'll link them down below. They were really cool. So overall, I gave this poetry collection 3 out of 5 stars. I did like it, and I did really like some of the poems, but I think overall it wasn't really like my preferred poetry style, if that makes sense. I've read quite a bit of poetry, which is weird to realize, but I really do like reading poetry. I feel like it's a really good like in-between for reading longer things, and I just love poetry in general, and I love how poetry can sound, or all of that stuff in it. I love poetry. I think it's great. But this is not exactly my cup of tea. I think it's really well done, it's really well written, but it's not exactly my preferred kind of poetry style, if that makes sense. So I would recommend this though. I think that made sense. Like rating and reviewing poetry, I have to admit, is really fucking hard, but normally I'm just gonna tell you if it was my style or not, and then if you should read it or not. This one, definitely check it out. It was really interesting. So I read Black Canary Ignite by Meg Cabot and Hara McGee. I don't have a physical copy, so here's a beautiful image. I'm not going to talk about this at all here. You're going to have to go over to the Cabot Cast and listen to the episode that Brie and I did with Carter and Maddie talking about it. I love both of them so much, and it was so much fun to sit down and talk about a book with them, which we'd never really done in like this kind of like more structured format before. And it was only like my second Meg Cabot book, I think, and it was Brie's first. So this was really interesting. We both love Black Canary though, so that's why when they gave us like options to pick from, we were both like, no, we're doing the Black Canary one. That's just what we're doing. I will link the podcast and the episode down below, but I'm pretty sure you can get it in your podcatcher of choice. It's called the Cabot Cast. I will also link their Instagram. Go check them out, give them some love. We love them a lot. They're really great. Next, I read a very short poetry chapbook, about 70 pages I think, and it is Commando by Evan Loren. I didn't look up how to pronounce the name, and I really should have. I'm sorry about that. So this is really short, but I ended up giving it 5 stars. This is definitely my kind of poetry, and it was so interesting and so, I don't know, it really hit. Some of these poetries really hit, and they hit really hard and really well, and it was really well done. I will definitely be looking up more by this poet or author. Definitely looking into more of what she does. This is so short, and yet I loved it so much. I wish there was more. I'm hoping, I haven't looked yet because I don't want to be disappointed, but I'm hoping that she's published more stuff or is going to be, because I will definitely be picking it up and reading it. Next we have more poetry. I guess I was up on a poetry kick in February. We have another one too, but I read, can you hear the wind? It's so loud. I reread No Matter the Wreckage by Sarah Kay. Sarah Kay is one of my favorite spoken word poets. I will link one of her videos or something down below because she's just amazing, and listening to her read her own poetry is incredible. I love listening to poets read their own poetry. I think there's something really special about it. And yeah, this was a reread. I've read this before. I love Sarah Kay so much. I've been into her stuff since like 2014, 2015, somewhere around there. This was published in 2014, and I think I got it pretty like around the time it came out. Yeah, this was a reread. I gave it 5 stars again. I highly recommend this. And there's an audiobook of this now with her reading like all the things, which I also highly recommend. I like half read it, half listened to the audiobook because I loved her reading so much. Next we have a poetry collection that I listened to. As I mentioned, I love listening to poets read their own poetry collection, and this one was a surprise. I heard about it on the Book Riot Get Booked podcast. Someone was asking for recommendations like this one, and I did not know that this existed, and it is I Would Leave Me If I Could by Halsey. Yes, Halsey the musician. And I wasn't sure what I expected of it, but I really enjoyed it. Her voice is just, she has a great voice for reading things, and her poetry is very raw, and I would definitely say to look up trigger warnings for this one. There's a lot of them, like all of the trigger warnings. I gave this one 3.5 stars in the end because I really loved the beginning half, and then like the part of the middle half kind of just dragged for me. I don't know why, but I wasn't clicking as much with those poems, and then at the end I started to love it again. So I ended up giving it 3 out of 5. Overall, it wasn't my favorite, and it wasn't. Still really recommend that you check this out, especially the audiobook, because her voice is just so, Her voice is so good. I almost accidentally listened to this all in one go, but I had to go to sleep. And then, mentioning the crab along again, we have Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I got out my fancy hardback to talk about it because this cover is just so beautiful. I'm trying not to get the reflection of the window onto it because it's not as pretty like that, but like that, ooh, it's beautiful. Yeah, this was a reread for our Cosmere Crab Along, which I've already mentioned and will be linked down below. I hit myself in the face. Yeah, but this is Warbreaker by Brandon Sanderson. I love this book. I'm not going to talk about it too much here because we did a whole live show on it. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of links, a lot of cards up happening, so do that if you will. I gave this 5 stars on the reread. I love Warbreaker a lot. Next, we have one that I did an entire reading vlog on and a full review with Max Reads. So I will link both of those things down below because I have to say, Max and I's review, our joint review of this book, was so fun to film. Just so much fun. And that is Night of the Crabs by Guyan Smith. This is a giant killer crab horror novel. It came out in '76. It is incredible. I rated this 4 stars. I'm not going to say any more because like I said, I did a whole reading vlog and we did a whole dedicated review to it. Max and I talked about it for a long time. So I will link both of those things down below. Check them out. I hope you enjoy. This was a weird foray. It is part of the idea I had a while ago to do like a kind of series where I read like really bananas books with like bananas plots and everything, which I've decided to call Bananas Books because we're super, you know, creative like that. But this is technically like the 0 episode because I wasn't actually having it yet, but you know, I will link that playlist down below if you want to check it out. Next is another Cosmere Crab Along book, and that is The Final Empire. This is Mistborn Book 1 by Brandon Sanderson. I loved this. It was so good. I loved it so much. I just realized my short stories aren't in here. Why are the short stories not in here? I'm not going to say much about this. Like I said, we did a whole live show. There's going to be so many links down in the description. I already hate myself having to like try and link everything down there. But I loved this on a reread. Mistborn is so good on a reread. This is my 3rd or 4th time rereading it, I think. And I listened to part of the graphic audio and then read the rest of it physically because it was just so good. I love the series a lot. I haven't started. I've kind of started, but I haven't finished Well of Ascension yet, and our live show is in a few days, so you know, it's going great. But yeah, highly recommend, also part of the Crab Along, obviously. Next I read Cappuccinos, Cupcakes, and a Corpse by Harper Lynn. This is a cozy mystery that I did a full review with Cece, which I will link down below and in the cards above. We did a full deep dive on this book, which is available for free on Amazon, and it's part of her like Free Book Friday series that she has going on, which is a lot of fun. If you're looking for free books, they've talked about quite a few so far, so I will link that playlist as well as our video down below, but I'm not going to talk about it too much here. And then finally, we're talking about the final 3 things on this list, which is Heartstopper Volumes 1, Volumes 2, and Volume 3 by Alice Oseman. I've loved what I've read by Alice Oseman before, and so I was expecting to love this, and everyone's been calling it a super cozy, gay graphic novel, and they were not wrong. It is super cozy and gay. I will say there are definitely trigger warnings in volumes 2 and 3, and kind of in 1, but less so. There's like mild homophobia and everything, as to be expected, sadly, in a gay graphic novel and a queer graphic novel. And then these 2 have trigger warnings for like self-harm and eating disorder. And even saying that, they're still just really heartwarming and just like so good and so cute. I already want to reread these, and honestly I'm probably going to. Volume 4 comes out in May, I think, in the UK at least, and I ordered my copy in Book Depository because I'm not waiting until November. It comes out in November in the US, and I'm not that patient. So I'm probably going to reread these very soon. And I gave them all 5 stars. Definitely, highly recommend this series. It's so good. If you need more detailed trigger warnings, I would definitely look them up. Just be careful with yourself, as always. Oh, I forgot 2 things. 2 short stories. I don't know why they're not on my list. In February, we're just going to add this in at the end. In February, I also read Shadows for Silence in the Forest of Hell and 6 of the Dusk, which are 2 short stories by Brandon Sanderson, which we had on our Cosmere Crab Along to read in February, which I read in February. I gave them both 5 stars. They were incredible short stories. Just so interesting and so... yeah, just, I don't want to say any more than that. They're very good. I gave them both 5 stars. read the short stories. I mean, obviously. Also, if you hadn't read Six of the Dusk, Sanderson recently, like a few months ago, did a brief reading of the sequel to Six of the Dusk, which he has worked on some. And if you haven't read that, that blew our minds. I say our minds because Brie messaged me in all caps like multiple times, and then I read it and I was like, I can't even process this. It took me like a whole 12 hours to figure out what had happened. And it's not very long. It's like maybe 1,000 words, probably not even. It's not the like full thing, I don't think. It's just like whatever he has done for now. Anyway, those are all the things I read in January, February, and March. If I was looking down a lot in this video, I had my trusty notebook here, so I was checking there. Yeah, but that's everything I read. If you've read any of these things, let me know your thoughts and feelings, or if you're going to pick anything up, let me know. I hope you're having a good day. I hope you are well and safe. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to our channel if you are new. Life Before Death, Radiance.